Pop star Aaron Carter has at the age of 34.
Yeah, the troubled performer grew up in the limelight, but he was in and out of rehab several times.
You know, there's a short life in
Why do you think that is? What the creative side is?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life.
Deep within the labyrinth of Hollywood's glitz and glamour lies a world that most of us can only begin to imagine. A world where power, wealth, and influence seem to stretch endlessly, but so do the secrets. And perhaps no story embodies this darker side of fame more than the shocking allegations surrounding Sean Diddy Combs and the tragic, tangled web of Aaron Carter's life and demise. It's a tale that feels almost too outrageous to be real, yet the details keep unraveling, each revelation more disturbing than the last.
Card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Let's start with what's been lighting up the headlines. Diddy, the music mogul and cultural icon, is now at the center of a legal storm so massive it's threatening to dismantle his empire. For years, whispers of misconduct followed him like a shadow, but now those whispers are turning into roars. His legal team is scrambling to delay his federal trial after 3 more alleged victims stepped forward with accusations that tie him to the unthinkable. Among these allegations are claims that he targeted child stars, children when they were at their most vulnerable, including Aaron Carter, whose name has tragically become synonymous with both success and suffering.
You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, you know? Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what Heath had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. You know, but when you lose your man card.
Aaron Carter, the boy wonder who topped the charts and sold millions of albums before he even hit his teenage years. He was the quintessential, bright-eyed kid thrust into the limelight, and for a while it seemed like he had it all. But behind the scenes, Aaron's life was anything but picture perfect. His struggles with family, fame, and his own inner demons played out in public, a slow-motion car crash that fans and tabloids couldn't look away from. And now, as new details about his demise emerge, the question isn't just about how he perished, it's about why, and who might have been pulling the strings. Aaron's mother, Jane Schneck, has been relentless in her pursuit of the truth. She's not buying the official story, not for a second. According to law enforcement, Aaron's demise was ruled an accident, a case closed as quickly as it was opened. But Jane? She's tearing that narrative apart, piece by piece. The one detail she keeps hammering home is impossible to ignore. If Aaron drowned in a bathtub, why wasn't there any water in his lungs? Let that sink in. No water. Yet, the authorities seem content with their neat little bow of an explanation, chalking it up to his history of personal struggles. But Jane isn't satisfied, and frankly, neither are a growing number of people. The inconsistencies are piling up. For starters, Arun was found fully clothed, wearing a shirt and necklace, in the very bathtub where he supposedly drowned. Who takes a bath like that? It doesn't make sense, and it's just one of the many details that gnaw at the edges of this already fragile story. Then there's the matter of his phone, a device that was practically an extension of his hand. Aaron was rarely, if ever, seen without it. Yet when his body was discovered, the phone was nowhere near him. It was later found in his car parked outside. How does that happen? Why would someone as attached to their phone as Aaron leave it behind, especially when he was home alone? The questions keep coming, but the answers? They're nowhere to be found.
Yeah, Rick, MB, the street is now cleared. People have been moving in and out of that home behind me all day. And tonight we heard from some of those closest to Aaron Carter, and they all say the same thing. They all share stories of a very kind, loving, caring, humble, yet troubled young man.
And here's where things get even murkier. Just days before his demise, Aaron posted a now infamous video online. In it, he looked directly into the camera and said something that now feels chillingly prophetic. If anything happens to me, I promise you, I am not idle. It wasn't just a plea for help, it was a warning. He spoke of being targeted, of people in powerful positions wanting him silenced. He mentioned being owed millions by giant corporations, throwing names like Sony Records into the mix. He even hinted at a conspiracy involving his own family. At the time, many dismissed it as the ramblings of a troubled man. But now it feels like a piece of a much larger, much darker puzzle.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid,
And let's not forget the timing. Aaron's demise occurred just one day after Diddy's birthday, a detail that might not mean much on its own, but takes on a sinister hue when viewed through the lens of Aaron's repeated claims that his life was in danger. Coincidence? Maybe. But in Hollywood, coincidences are rarely just that, especially when you start pulling at the threads of Aaron's life and see how they intersect with some of the industry's most powerful players, Diddy included.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
From the outside, Aaron's connection to Diddy might seem tenuous, but dig a little deeper and you'll find that their paths crossed in ways that are hard to ignore. Back in his heyday, Aaron was signed to Jive Records, a subsidiary of Sony, which also had ties to Bad Boy Entertainment, Diddy's label. He was a towering figure in the industry, a kingmaker who held the keys to success for countless young artists. And while there's no concrete evidence linking Diddy to the allegations Aaron made in his final days, the overlap is enough to raise eyebrows, especially when you consider the broader accusations against Diddy, which paint a picture of a man who used his power and influence in ways that are nothing short of predatory. Aaron's life was already a whirlwind of chaos and exploitation long before his name became entangled in this web of allegations. He had publicly accused members of his own family of abuse, claims that were as heartbreaking as they were horrifying. He spoke openly about being taken advantage of by people he should have been able to trust, about being used as a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. And as he grew older, the cracks in his facade became harder to hide. But through it all, he maintained one thing, his story. He refused to let it be rewritten, even when it cost him everything.
It's very painful, very, very painful. I talked to him 2 weeks ago. He was at the dentist and he FaceTimed me. He said, come over. And I said, I have work to do. I wish I could have just go see him at least one more time.
And maybe that's why his demise feels so unsettling, because Aaron was a fighter, someone who wouldn't go quietly. He was working on new music, planning a comeback, and even reaching out to people he believed could help him turn his life around. He wasn't idle, and he made sure everyone knew it. So why would someone like that suddenly disappear under such suspicious circumstances? Why would someone who fought so hard to stay alive just stop? These are the questions that keep Aaron's mother up at night. They're the questions that have turned his demise into a rallying cry for those who believe there's more to this story than meets the eye. And as the allegations against Diddy continue to mount, it's hard not to wonder how deep this rabbit hole goes. Is it possible that Aaron's demise was more than just a tragedy? Could it be a piece of a much larger, much more sinister puzzle? The evidence, or lack thereof, doesn't just raise eyebrows, it demands answers. And while the official narrative might be enough for some, for others, it's just the beginning. Because if there's one thing Aaron Carter's life taught us, it's that the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes a little longer than we'd like.
He was a good person. You know, he had his demons, as we all do, you know. I just wish he had another chance to defeat those demons, I'll say.
And it's not just Aaron Carter's story that's raising eyebrows and drawing attention to the tangled web of secrets in Hollywood, because as we dig deeper, we start to see patterns, connections, and a network of influence that feels almost untouchable. At the center of it all is Diddy, whose name seems to pop up again and again, not just in Aaron's orbit, but in the lives of other young stars, some of whom have also faced eerily similar struggle. The deeper you look, the darker it gets. Take Justin Bieber, for example. Another child prodigy, another megastar whose meteoric rise came with a heavy price. Justin has spoken publicly about his battles with anxiety, burnout, and unhealthy coping mechanisms during his early years in the industry. But what he hasn't said outright, at least not yet, are the specifics of what he endured behind the scenes. And yet there are breadcrumbs, subtle hints, that maybe his story isn't so different from Aaron's. Fans have long speculated about Justin's relationship with Diddy, pointing to old interviews, cryptic social media posts, and even Justin's own tears during a particularly emotional interview where he broke down talking about wanting to protect younger artists like Billie Eilish from the same pitfalls that he faced.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah.
when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
And it isn't just speculation fueling these connections. There's actual footage, videos that have resurfaced and gone viral again in light of the allegations against Diddy. One clip, in particular, shows a young Justin Bieber, barely a teenager, appearing on a radio show while Diddy jokes about gifting him a luxury car and invites him to spend time at his home. The tone of the conversation, lighthearted on the surface, feels downright chilling in hindsight. Something about Justin's body language, the way he nervously laughs while trying to deflect the comments, leaves a sour taste in your mouth. It was all just fun back then, wasn't it? But now in the context of the accusations swirling around Diddy's alleged exploitation of young talent, that fun starts to look like something else entirely.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
What's even more unsettling is how these stories, Aaron's, Justin's, and others, seem to follow a pattern. Starry-eyed young performers thrust into a world they don't fully understand, surrounded by people who claim to have their best interests at heart, but who, in reality, are only interested in what they can take. These are kids who grew up in the spotlight, whose every move was scrutinized by the media, their mistakes magnified, their vulnerabilities exploited. And the more you hear about the inner workings of the industry, the more it starts to feel like this wasn't just a series of isolated incidents, but part of something much bigger, something systemic. One of the most damning pieces of evidence tying Diddy to this alleged system of exploitation is his connection to the so-called freak-offs that have now become a focal point of his legal troubles. These weren't just wild parties. They were meticulously orchestrated events, complete with a roster of attendees, supplies, and even post-event care for the participants. The details are almost too bizarre to believe. Rooms pre-stocked with items that suggest a disturbing level of planning, high-profile guests who allegedly turned a blind eye to what was happening, and a culture of silence that ensured no one would talk about it afterward. And if anyone dared to step out of line, well, there are rumors of recordings, evidence that could be used to keep people quiet or destroy their careers if they ever tried to speak out.
Now to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers come in to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept.
And let's not forget the most recent bombshell from Diddy's ongoing legal battles, the allegations brought by a former aspiring artist who claims she was flown to one of these infamous gatherings under the guise of a career opportunity. Court filings reveal that she was barely out of her teens when she was invited to a private meeting with Diddy and his team. But instead of a professional setting, she says she was taken to a location filled with people she didn't know, forced to consume substances she didn't recognize, and pressured into actions she was not prepared for. Her lawsuit details how she was allegedly threatened afterward, told that speaking out would end her career before it even started. What's worse, she claims there were others at the event in the exact same position, all too scared to leave or resist.
Have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
Even more disturbing is the testimony from another individual, a man who says he was brought into Diddy's orbit through a series of mentorship promises. This man, now in his late 20s, alleges that he was groomed over a period of months, with Diddy convincing him that his career depended on unwavering loyalty and obedience. The lawsuit claims that Diddy isolated him from his family and friends, moved him into a luxury property, and controlled every aspect of his life, from his appearance to his social media activity. But the most harrowing part of his story involves an incident at a private gathering where he says he was coerced into participating in acts that were later used as leverage against him. He now alleges that Diddy's team recorded the entire event without his consent and used the footage to keep him in line.
Are you done with Hollywood because of this
No,
specific reason?
I'm still working. I still You know, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents, whether they evaluate it or not.
And then there's the case of the whistleblower within Diddy's own inner circle. According to leaked documents, a former staff member has come forward with shocking claims about the lengths Diddy's team allegedly went to in order to cover their tracks. This individual, who worked as part of the logistics team for events, says they were tasked with destroying evidence, including hard drives, security footage, and even detailed guest lists. The whistleblower alleges that anything that could tie Diddy to potentially incriminating activities was systematically erased. They've also described the culture of fear within Diddy's organization, where employees were reportedly warned that speaking out would lead to legal and personal consequences. If true, these claims suggest a level of premeditation and control that's as calculated as it is horrifying. But perhaps the most chilling detail comes from a newly surfaced lawsuit involving an incident that allegedly took place at one of Diddy's Miami properties. According to the plaintiff, the house had a hidden passageway that connected to a neighboring property owned by another high-profile celebrity. The lawsuit claims that this passageway was used to transport guests, often without their knowledge, between the two homes. The plaintiff, who was reportedly brought through this passageway, alleges that they regained full awareness only after arriving at a private room where they were confronted by Diddy himself. The idea of secret tunnels and hidden rooms might sound like something out of a thriller, but in this case, it's part of a legal document that paints a picture of a man who went to extraordinary lengths to shield his actions from public view.
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th. Definitely making the rounds because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to have with him. Let's take a look.
And then there's the video footage of Diddy's altercation with his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, which is now at the center of a heated legal battle. Prosecutors claim the footage, captured by hotel cameras, shows Diddy chasing Cassie down a hallway, dragging her back to their room, and engaging in what they describe as a violent confrontation. Diddy's lawyers, of course, are doing everything in their power to discredit the video, calling it heavily edited and misleading. But prosecutors insist they have the original, unaltered footage, and they're prepared to present it in court. If the video is as damning as they claim, it could blow the case wide open. And not just for Diddy, because here's the thing, this isn't just about one man's actions. It's about an entire system that allowed those actions to go unchecked for decades. It's about the people who looked the other way, who enabled and even participated in the very behavior that's now being brought to light. It's about the culture of complicity in Hollywood, where silence is often rewarded and speaking out can mean career ruin. And it's about the victims, people like Aaron Carter and Justin Bieber, who were chewed up and spit out by an industry that saw them as nothing more than commodities.
She hadn't seen him all day Friday and then decided she always gave him coffee in the morning, made coffee for him. So she went to his door, his bedroom door, and knocked on it, and then heard the dog in an extremely agitated state inside Aaron's bedroom. And that's when she decided she would open the door, and she discovered him. But it looks, Brad, like he had been...
And yet, even as more victims come forward and more evidence is revealed, there's still a sense that justice might not be served. Diddy's legal team is one of the best money can buy, and they're fighting tooth and nail to have key pieces of evidence thrown out. They're arguing that the footage of Cassie is inadmissible, that the testimonies of other alleged victims are unreliable, that the entire case is nothing more than a smear campaign. And while some might see this as a desperate attempt to save face, others worry it could actually work. After all, this is Hollywood, where power and influence often trump truth and accountability. But here's the real kicker. Even if Diddy is found guilty, even if the allegations are proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, what does that mean for the industry as a whole? Will it finally force a reckoning, a long overdue examination of the way young talent is treated? Or will it be just another scandal, another headline that fades away once the next big story comes along? Because let's not forget, this isn't the first time we've heard about abuse and exploitation in Hollywood. From Harvey Weinstein to R. Kelly, the list of powerful men who've used their positions to prey on others is long and growing.
What's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear? I don't even know how to answer that question. Not being able to live as long as I can. That's my greatest fear.
And yet, for every high-profile case that makes it to court, there are countless others that don't. Victims who are too scared to speak out, who've been silenced by non-disclosure agreements or threatened into submission. People who've been told their careers, their livelihoods, their very lives depend on their silence. It's a cycle that's been going on for far too long, and unless something changes, it's a cycle that will continue. So where does this leave us? With more questions than answers, that's for sure. Questions about what really happened to Aaron Carter, about the true extent of Diddy's alleged actions, about who else might be involved. Questions about how deep this rabbit hole goes and whether we'll ever get to the bottom of it. Questions that demand answers, but answers that might never come. But what do you think? Are these allegations just the tip of the iceberg, or is this the moment Hollywood finally faces its reckoning? Let us know your thoughts down below, and as always, stay tuned, because this story is far from over.